What's going on, YouTube? My name is Ralph.
My name is Chappelle.
Together we are the JPs. As always, we want to thank you guys for tuning in to our channel, Two Hearts.
1B.
1B. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Make sure you tell a friend.
And all your friends.
To tell that friend.
And all your friends.
So we can tell all your friends. So we can spread the message. So thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to go right into it, man. We created this channel because marriage is something that we value very, very, very much. And when we look at statistics, some stats will say that 40 to 50% of marriages end up in a divorce. And that is crazy.
That's crazy.
So for the purpose of today's video, we'll use the extreme number of 50%. That means half of marriages end up in a divorce. And there's many, many reasons for that. If you look at surveys, if you look at studies and research, usually the top 3 reasons, and it fluctuates which one's number 1, 2, or 3. The top 3 reasons would be infidelity, finances, and number 3 would be a lack of communication. So to combat all of that, or as much as we could, we feel like it's important while you're dating, while you're in a relationship, there's some questions that we need to talk about. There's some things that we need to talk about in a relationship. There's some conversations that we need to have. So we would advise that you do not go into your marriage without having these conversations with your significant other. Yes. So here they are.
So in today's video, we'll be going over some questions and topics that we feel are essential to have those conversations prior to engagement, especially prior to marriage, for sure. And so we'll go over a list. Of course, there's so much more, but our list, we compiled a list for you. So first thing first is, of course, finances. Of course, as Rob stated, finances, one of the top 3 causes of divorce. So finances, definitely have to have a conversation. You know, are we going to have joint or separate accounts? Money handling. People handle money differently. You know, how do you figuring out how one person handles the finances, figuring out who's going to handle, majority of finances? How is that task going to be divided within your marriage? That's extremely, extremely important.
Absolutely. Which we'll do a full video on that later on where we talk about, what method we feel works best for us. Another question that we think it's important that you need to have that conversation with your mate is, what is cheating to you? What is your definition of cheating? Reason why that's important is because people have different definitions of cheating. I may think that cheating is strictly on a physical level. Maybe my wife may think it's more on an emotional level. So we need to understand, like, what do you mean by cheating? When we say the word cheating, what emotions does it evoke? What do you feel about the word cheating? That's a really good question, a really conversation to have with your mate.
And one of the top 3 in regards to divorce is communication. And one part of communication is probably one of the toughest part of communication is handling frustrations. So having conversations, what makes you tick? How do you act when you're angry? Do you go into a shell? What do you do? So having a conversation about not only communication styles, but also how frustration is handled is also extremely, extremely important for that. And of course, it is one of the top 3. So you want to tackle that early on.
I'm going to add to it. What is your idea of marriage? When you think about marriage, what does that mean to you? And that's important because I've realized that depending on different backgrounds and different family upbringings, marriage means something to one person and it means something to another person. So you want to have the person describe to you, what do they think marriage is going to be like? And then you go off of that. And that's very, very important to get you guys on the same page as much as possible.
Gender roles, a big one as well. Do you expect one person to do most of the housework? Are we going to stick to traditional gender roles where, the wife is at home and they clean and cook and take care of children? Or are we going to do something different? Are we going to share tasks and household tasks? That is a great topic for discussion, and it's a great topic prior to marriage for sure, to know, hey, how is that going to be done? Because if that discussion doesn't happen earlier on in the marriage, one person starts doing more of the tasks, it will build a lot of frustration. So you want to tackle that discussion ahead of time.
Yeah, I think it's important for women to understand how does a man feel about gender roles? Because I think a lot of times that's where the issue lies. Like what we grew up to understand as what we need to do and what women have to do, it can be a problem. So you need to definitely have those kind of conversations. I think you also need to have conversations about children and parenting. That's important. It would shock you, but I've met couples who the spouse wanted kids, or the wife wanted kids, and the husband didn't want kids. And I'm thinking like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
How did this happen, right? So you don't want that to be a surprise. That's a conversation that you need to have with your mate. Like, how do we feel about kids? Do we want kids? Do we not have kids? How many kids do we want? And also, how do we plan on raising kids? How do we plan on parenting kids? Because the way that my wife was raised is different from how I was raised. Like, my wife grew up and she never got a whooping.
I was a good kid. That's not because they didn't believe in whoopings.
Man, listen, ain't no such thing as I was a good kid.
Yes,
she never got a whooping. Now, me, on the other hand, my whoopings were like paychecks. You know what I'm saying? Bi-weekly, they were coming in, baby. They were coming in. And I'm used to whoopings. And so now we have to figure out, how are we going to discipline our children? You know, like, because I might want to whoop them and she might not. So I hope I win. Yeah. But that's something that we have to talk about to make sure that we're on the same page with that.
Along the same lines of parenting, you want, as you know, our parents are aging, our parents going to be moving in, as they age, if they get sick, if they're not moving. Yeah, that's a very tough one. Very, very tough one. If they're not moving in, if they're going elsewhere, as far as for other family members or for facility to help them in their older age, are we helping financially with that? That topic, it's a tough one, but it's one that definitely needs to be handled as well within the marriage as the parents get older. And also, talking about parents, your family, your past history, your family, your past hurts and things along those lines, having those discussions, that of course is more sensitive. So definitely in the engagement prior to marriage or early on in your marriage, you want to have those conversations.
Yeah. I'm going to add to that. You definitely need to talk about religion, faith, and spirituality. One of those three, right? Because your faith, your values, those mean a lot to people. So you want to align those as much as possible. I've talked about, for me, I'm believing in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And it was important for me to find a woman who also shares that faith. Because we're going to be raising children together. We're going to be making decisions together. So it's important for me and her to submit to the same higher power. So that's a conversation that you need to have. It's a matter of, I'm not saying that one person shouldn't be with another, but again, it gets tough when you guys are not on the same page as far as what you believe in and what you submit to. And that's very important. Who you submit to, very, very important.
And we're tying in the religion aspect as far as your belief in divorce or not. Divorce is not an option. There's some marriages like, hey, divorce is not an option. We're going to work through this. Whereas others, their belief is different. Having that conversation, where do you stand in regards to divorce?
Yeah, I told my wife when we got married, before we got married, I told her that divorce is not an option. I said, if you're trying to leave me, I'm gonna follow you. Okay, I'm gonna follow you. And I know that sounds kind of creepy, but I didn't mean it in a creepy way. I meant in the sense of, I will do everything that I can to work this thing out. So what that means is you're not going to leave me. And it's not a threat. It's just a position that I take. Like, we will do what it takes to work out our marriage. Trouble will come. Things will happen. But we're going to make sure that we do everything we can to work it out. You also need to talk about, some things are more on a heavy weighted scale and some things are not. Talk about physical appearance, man, because sometimes a man may marry a woman and she was petite, and that's what he liked. She was petite, and then things happen.
She got a happy weight,
and she got that happy weight, and she real happy. And it's important to have those conversations as well, because I told my wife, I said, listen, I know that in life you're gonna have children, and there's gonna come a time where you may not look the same way, but I want to make sure that you know that I'm always gonna love you, because I love you for you, girl. And we're gonna go to the gym together and get you back to where you need to be. But that's a conversation that we think is important to have as well. So whatever is important to you, whatever you feel like ties to your values, you need to have a conversation about it. Don't go into your marriage hoping. Don't go into your marriage blind. Don't go into your marriage without having very crucial, very tough conversations. There's tons of questions. This is just a short list that we put together. We're just hoping that this stimulates the conversation for you to have those conversations, but there's so much more that's out there. But make sure you guys are communicating, because that's going to be one of the keys to the success of your marriage.
Yeah, and the short list that we provided is not only for, we would like for you to have this conversation prior to the marriage, but if you're in the marriage and you have not discussed these topics, we still encourage you to have those conversations. It's not too late. Having it earlier on, you can take a stance from there depending on how important each topic is to you. But if in your marriage now, that conversation still needs to be had, and it's not too late.
Absolutely. It's a really, really great point. Not only do we have them before, but we continue to have them, because sometimes things change. Well, we said that together.
Yeah,
that was so cute.
Soda.
I don't owe you nothing but love. But sometimes things change, and it's important to continue to have those conversations. Communication is one of the major keys to the success of your marriage, the success of your relationship. So practice it over and over and over.
Exactly.
All right. So thank you guys for tuning in to our channel, Two Hearts, One Beat. We'll see you next week. We're dropping videos every week, so make sure that you hit that bell so you can get those notifications. Thank you for watching our video. Ooh, we got matching watches. Oh my gosh. And we'll see you guys next week.